Most of us think of death as the end of the story. Full stop. But what if it isn't? What if our bodies, even after we're gone, have one last, really powerful testimony to give? Well, in this explainer, we're going to dive into a fascinating source text that explores exactly that idea.
The source kicks things off with this really direct and profound call to attention. Hear, O man of dust, and consider your end. It's basically an invitation to just pause, to think about our own mortality, not in a scary way, but from a place of understanding where we actually come from.
And this right here, this is the central question we're going to be wrestling with. The idea that our physical remains, our bones, our dust, they actually continue to bear witness to something. It's a perspective that completely reframes how we might think about the grave itself.
So, let's unpack this first core idea. The source presents this really unique concept, the body as a treasury of bones. And this isn't just about leftover remains. It's the idea that our very skeleton keeps a record, a kind of testament to the life that was lived.
What's so wild here is how the source uses this ancient verse to almost give the bones a voice. They're not just lifeless objects. They're presented as active witnesses. They look, they stare. It's this powerful metaphor that suggests our very being, even in death, is like an open book, and that nothing is truly forgotten.
Now, this whole idea of a testimony just keeps building as we move to the next section. You see, the source text structures its whole argument around three totally distinct types of burial, and each one is presented not just as a way to dispose of a body, but as a unique witness that speaks to those of us who are still living. First up is the most ancient, and according to this text, the most natural method: burial in the earth. The simple, profound act of returning the body to the ground that all life springs from.
And this, right here, is the foundational principle for that first burial. It's a direct cycle. We're taken from the earth, and we're returned to the earth. This idea is absolutely central to understanding the body's place in the natural world. And this isn't just some poetic idea, it's a physical reality. The source actually breaks down decomposition into its elemental parts. Our carbon, our water, our minerals, they all get recycled right back into the ecosystem. In this view, death literally becomes food for new life. It's a pretty amazing cycle. Okay, so now we move to the second type, which is basically a direct human attempt to stop that natural cycle in its tracks. This is the burial of preservation, the effort to halt decay and hold on to the physical form for as long as possible. The classic example, of course, is embalming, which the ancient Egyptians were famous for. It's a fascinating chemical process, as you can see here, designed to do just one thing: stop the body's natural return to dust. It's really an attempt to hold time at bay, even if it's only temporary. But this quote is used to show the core contrast the source is making. The phrase, "where their worm does not die," points to a completely different kind of decay. While humans are busy trying to stop the physical worms, the text suggests there's a spiritual corruption that no chemical can ever stop. The body's preservation is temporary. The state of the spirit is what really matters. And that brings us to the third and final method: the burial of fire, or what we know as cremation. Where the earth takes years to reclaim a body, fire does it in just a few moments, reducing everything, flesh and bone, to ash. Now here, fire becomes this really powerful symbol. The source makes a critical distinction between two kinds of death. The first death is just the physical end of the body, what happens to everyone. But the second death is described as a spiritual judgment. So fire acts as both a physical process of cremation and a potent metaphor for a final spiritual reckoning. Okay, hang on, because this is a major turning point in the text. We've been talking about what happens to the flesh, but now the focus shifts dramatically. It moves away from the physical end of the body to a promise that the source argues is literally encoded within the bones themselves. These last words of Joseph are presented as the absolute key. Think about it. He doesn't ask for his body to be perfectly preserved in a tomb forever. He asks for his bones to be carried to a promised land. So the crucial point here is that the bones aren't just remnants of the past. They become a vessel for a future promise.
And this just captures the essence of that promise perfectly. The text is asserting that even when a body decomposes and its atoms get scattered by wind and water, they are not lost. In this view, every single particle is remembered and accounted for by its creator. And that idea, that nothing is truly lost, leads us to the absolute climax of the source material, the incredible, mind-bending vision of the prophet Ezekiel. This is where that abstract promise becomes a vivid, dramatic scene you can almost see.
Just try to imagine the scene. The prophet describes being set down in a valley that isn't just filled with graves, but is completely covered in old, bleached, scattered bones. It's the ultimate picture of forgotten death, a place where all hope seems completely and utterly lost.
And then comes this question, posed directly to the prophet in the middle of all that silence and decay. It challenges all human logic and experience. Can death actually be reversed? Can dust become life again? I mean, everything in you screams, no way.
But then, the impossible starts to happen, step by step. First, there's a sound, a rattling, as the scattered bones somehow find their correct place and reassemble themselves. Then, sinews and flesh miraculously reappear on them. Skin covers them. And finally, the breath of life is called back into these newly formed bodies. It's just unbelievable. And the result is astonishing. What was once a valley of death and decay is totally transformed. It's now filled with a vast, living army standing on its feet. This is the ultimate testimony presented in the source, that no state of decay is final, and nothing is beyond the power of recreation. So after all of that, what's the final takeaway? What does it all mean? Well, the text concludes by connecting these ancient prophecies and visions to a final, personal message for every single one of us.
It all culminates in this idea the source calls the Great Surrender. Remember those 3 burials? This vision says that ultimately none of them get the final say. No matter where the physical remains end up, nothing can hold them back. The sea, the earth, and the fire, they will all give up the dead they hold.
And we end with this final, really powerful image. The Creator is depicted as the treasure of the bones, someone who keeps a perfect record. It leaves us with this one provocative thought to chew on. What if every single life is accounted for, right down to the last particle of dust? And what does that final accounting mean for us?